I would like to wish all of you who have come this morning good morning.
다지네 다지린데 담비체시를 제비미는 되는데요. 가서 상계 매래기 완체하러부터기 다 레림지 여비브라 완디 남경에 완디 자도 디세 디완디 매브체 매래기 롱드브지 되는지 아니 매래기 롱드브지 자도 차이 아니 매래수 다 어리 나 롱드브지 도시
So today, according to the program, we were supposed to have an empowerment of the medicine Buddha, but today I will not give that empowerment. Instead, I will be giving the lung, the transmission of the practice as well as the mantra.
다가는 신기다 드린 지림데 ngaje chale chujuda 중이 제가 봐도 인수보다 중이 제가 봐도 시험한다 이네 중이 있어도 도시 엔디에 치료 추주 당번지 예수 지전에 된 교화당 치료의 매버지 당 아주 잘 상마 주버를 직자 다들 직전에 되게 찬도 직전에
Likewise, the program is to originally to have the morning session until 12:30. But instead of just going to 12:30, we'll go 2 hours now. And then again in the afternoon, we are scheduled to get together after 1:30, but perhaps we won't have that session. We'll try to complete everything this morning.
다들래요. 어제도 시들이야. 다라 신기 차도 시구르라서 미리베 경카랑 래바다 개가 신은 묘어쇼 아니디 쇼로가 나와르딘스레
The fifth stanza reads, "Whenever someone out of envy does me wrong by attacking or belittling me, I will take defeat upon myself and give the victory to others."
제자다디 가르쳐서는 지당기 자주쌤 가르쳐래 심진시 딱 가르치려고 다디 지당기 남규 로종 냠내 시두사네 당신 냠배관에 냠내 차당다 되네 당신 제외관에 냠내 차당 다들 요리 알아서 나바니
Generally, when we practice Generally, when we practice mind training, there are two different types of practices we do. There's the practice of meditating upon the equality of self and other, and there's the practice of meditating upon exchanging self and other.
전주 전주금 개별 차발이야 아니 군제명아 dwingge관의 전주금 개별 탑 아니 다신년백관의 전주금 개별 탑 다신제관의 전주금 개별 탑 드리시 넘버 숨다 디 가르쳐다지 십자신 드리십니다.
Actually, when we think about the instructions on arousing bodhicitta, there really are actually three types. First, there is the instructions on meditating upon the sequence of 7 causes and results. And then there's also the instructions on meditating on the equality of self and other. And then third, the meditation on the exchanging self and other.
당신 제외 냠렌디 다 엄마 가담 당부도 봐봐 가담비 지디 상화를 나지 디 맹아디 상외 탐버 제버차 수만나신 근데 상화를 나지 미상물이야 에너지 너가 배웠다 나 얘네 시수 드네 가수다디 당신 제외 맹아디 this is 상계 체네 에너지 망부지 냠레나로 들이쳐버려.
The instructions on exchanging self and others originally in the Karmapa tradition were secret. They are said to be a secret special instruction, and thus they were not taught widely to very many people. Later, these instructions on exchanging self and others were revealed, and since then they have been practiced widely.
드린 주산에 다디 경과랑게 내봐도 얘가 시는 비was. 다드린 주산에 심지에는 인제외게 로티 아주 가서 로장용 주산에 로진베시도 장용 주산 고체 토브르 레비미나 아니 심지에 현리아베 제시 방배기 삼바디 쇼차고 싶지에 인상 디균선라 되네 랑 도나야 도 다나 신기 소수 강에 준비네 치미년 봐 랑게 디기다 아니 랑게 가르다지 다 유세데 심지 현래야 지 가르 대학 된지가 다 간다 뽑았으네 닝도를 지 연구했어
So it reads, I will take defeat upon myself and give the victory to others. So when we are training our minds in compassion for all sentient beings, there comes a point where we have such intense treasuring and love for other sentient beings that we don't worry about how hard it is for ourselves, how bad it is for ourselves. We do not think about the difficulties we face. We are willing to give all of our happiness and everything that we have to other sentient beings. And so we develop such courage and conviction.
다들이야 급들이야 다라 신기 튼다 차도공하기 에너지 시시 당화도 구라다발라 소바다 근데 충분히네요 다디기 지 가서 경험으로 수수 연체 안디 지 가서 캔로디 샤를 비고래서 다디 소디 가서다지 아주 도스바 삼담이미나 아니 지 미르비기 가사 신다지기 아니 수술이야지 존도도 군디브르 제위미나 안디니 지두사네 아주 지 잠바든 인지 냠래 연결업지기 다디 가서래 심지에신 다 녀모 왕도 주바 레렌서머 레렌저디 심지에 가사 텔레야 미데바 레렌디 소디 가사디 줄이에다 녀모 다 차도라서 녀모 텔레 태과디 계셔버려서 드림비 오래 레렌티 임베 인상 디균셀 때네 에네 가사 텔레야 안지 고역인 아줄이야 군딥다 정도도 군딥 샤바 텔 덴체 에네 디 랜도야 아주 다나 신기지 봐 가서 삼조 머루 같은데 제비나 디다 우연히지도 튜머르지당 다나 신기 로종기 냠랜도 튜머르지 저 말았어
So whenever someone out of envy does me wrong by attacking or belittling me, so here we're primarily talking about envy. So when someone attacks you, belittles you, or criticizes you, then we take the defeat upon ourselves, and we give the profit, we give the benefit to others. So when we think about other sentient beings, when there is someone who is criticizing you, belittling you, attacking you in any way, when we are practicing loving kindness and compassion, then that sentient being, we see that sentient being as being under the control of the afflictions. And so what is to blame? It is not the sentient being who is to blame. Rather, it is the afflictions that are in that sentient beings, that are within that sentient being that are to blame. And so for that reason, when another sentient being attacks us or criticizes or belittles us, if we were to respond in a similar way ourselves, then that would not match the way things actually are, nor would it fit with our mind training.
Pena Kashwe Tanam Guni Council was coming shin there, damage Gumzen with it. Gumzen and Randu, Dakandar, the Kashwe philosophies and Randu. That thing was something Hakudi. That in a philosophy is some understanding the philosophy, the understanding the lebenal matter, only to Susuki, Sem, the Ningi Narolia, you have sitting with Laland or Dal, as we can hear John the Ore. Mother understanding the Manche John the Ore. Bena, Same King Cambridge, Bena, Majun Namjun Peshaji Karchi or Sana. Mijigi. And Gubar is Mijigi Kashwada Mijigi Gubaz Pejun Gubaji and Susan Gogan shoes on any Mazo Contus Saturday and a middle Contus Madobe and Gubatella Contus Mares Gubatella Contus. The names of Juba de la Condomiso Genza, Juba de Camel Dusco, Juba de Lea, Juba de Midi Pejudangiavinza, Midi, Wongur Cheche, Pejuavinza, and Juba Coliada, Casuadaji, Miseg, and Colia da Casuan, Cartasar, Church in Sembayomare, Tunga Sembayomare, Church in Mission that they won't use Chevinza, Juba de Mesecondosaske, Omar. 제사 어디 배타나 신기 맞으기 유와데 코로나 뇌베 근롱매바다 뇌지 제삼베 근롱매바다 디 토알야 단동 아니 그 신기 원규리 신기 왕도 교회 인도산 아니 그 하면서 콜이야 미세 아주 컨트롤을 지겨 말해 배테는 신주지레스 아주 밀리아 아니 가사 코란이야 미세 코란 그 정신기 아니 컨트롤차 삼바케요 말해 디토알야 코란지 녀몽베 샤완도 교버스나 자도 녀몽베기 아니 totally controlled by that has disturbing emotion somewhere negative emotion in a emotional side these some of the what is here karasana emotional side some azun nambe shedeak nyomon side chasanro dishiji gyapto an some bena timudi emotional is lana me say the emotions get once came yomarwata physical diba tonaruji visible 시작해 요마로. 그래서 인주산에 이제 디지털 겹도 다 간다야. 이제게 원교월 예비 인사 녀모의 원교월 예비 인사 가사들이야 카메버듯이. 당기 유발이야 아주기 삼시 가르쳐는 신지 엔 간사 텔라 텐저 삽시에로 제거하디 대가 삼로로 된다는 거하디 집어를 차디요 하랬어 나는 게 다디 상에 마셔야 돼 근육요 하래
Now, I think we all know about this, but the reason is we all understand this. It's something, the philosophy that we all know. But often when there are things we understand, or when we have an understanding or philosophy, it's something that just stays in our brain. It's not really something often that we really take to heart. It's not something that we really feel from the depths of our mind. So when we come to practice, it can be difficult. Though we do understand, we all know and understand. So I think you all will understand this. It's like an analogy for this is like if someone were to hit you, were to strike you with a stick, what would you get angry at? You would get angry at the person. You wouldn't get angry at the stick. And the reason we wouldn't get angry at the stick is because the stick is not to blame. There's no fault of the stick. It's the person who uses the stick. It's the person who controls the stick. The stick on its own has no intention or no thought to strike you. And also the stick is not under its own control. So in this way, the stick has no motivation to harm you, no ill will. It is under the control of someone else. And so for that reason, we do not hold the stick to have any fault at all. So we don't get angry at the stick. And so likewise, when we think about people who, a person doesn't have any, by their nature, does not naturally have an intention to get you angry. Instead, it's that they're under the control of the afflictions. They're under the control of their emotions, the control of their negative and disturbing emotions. But actually, when we say emotions here, I sometimes have a doubt about the word emotions. If we think about the word emotion, I don't know that it actually covers all of the cases of, like the Tibetan word nyamong or the Sanskrit klesha. There are some things that are, like for example, delusion. Delusion is not really an emotion. We're not even aware it's there. It's not visible. We're not aware of it, so we can't really call it an emotion. But beyond that, these kleshas, when we're under the control of the kleshas or afflictions, then so what is under control of the kleshas or afflictions is the individual. And so we need to think of that individual as being controlled by the afflictions in this way.
제자 디균선 때는 간사 디뇽을 생활도 교배 인상 간사 딜량 아주 forgive sommar다 아주 간사 딜량 아주 구양샤워 구양 삼당 거라서 그게 자와되라 안다 지 된대지 수수기 가서 되다 자와되려야 하다래 자와되려 아주 가서 forbidding sommar다 디고 텔레양 아중 지 가져와다. 그 자와 텔레야 아니 가져와다. 오늘다디 간다 그 자와 텔 forgive 맞잖아. 가사 텔라 forgive 제고 알지. 다든지 가사디 묘몽 배상하도 교봐. 쿠란 내단 도샤리 윈주사나 나중에 바로다 구양학삼은 구양 따와지고도 계시면 제상 급딜이야 총카랑 걸 내마도 개가 시하는 비워사디 초진의 가사 버리보데 뉴몽베 상황도 규베 인상 그런 알려야지 좀더 군디블서 제바 텔레데네 텔렌도 가사 텔레야야 반네버 제비나 되게 말했어 가사 텔레야 라랴 타버도야 아니 인지 첨부게 살아다도 야나 제 삼바게시 가라상 코 가사 버리보디 아니 녀몽베기 xiangwangdo kyuni nyam thakwa neyewe indusan tela rabardoya ninji gomne kolya pen thotob ki karshwe samjor di kaso rabardoya kongbedo nangwa chiki nizu chari waras.
Therefore, the individual is under the control of the afflictions. And so we need to forgive that sentient beings. And so we should not respond to the act, to that sentient being's act. Whether or not we can forgive the act, the sentient being is that individual is under the control of the afflictions. And so we need to forgive them. We need to give them some space and forgiveness. So when it says here, I will take defeat upon myself and give the victory to others, then one aspect of this is that the other individual is under the control of the afflictions. And because of being under the control of the afflictions, they are harming us and attacking and belittling us. And so if we were to respond to get revenge and harm them, then that would not be okay. Instead, that sentient being is someone who, in particular, we need to have meditate upon great compassion for. We should try to develop great affection and love for that sentient being. The reason for this is that they are under the control of the afflictions, and so they are an especially wretched state under the control of the afflictions. And so for that reason, this is a situation where we really need to try to increase our compassion and increase our wish to benefit them.
아들이 유산에 배는 미치기 컴주를 잡이나 컴주 조선아 안나 컴주 조빈다 컴주 되라 아니 니지 거나서나다 미세 니지 거나스 게임도 다지 컴주들 내가오로 받아 이내 컴주 잡을 댄시 가사들라 아주지 심 가사들이야 에너지 딱 컨트롤을 치사 근진을 잡이나 안다 되기 심 추용거는 용용을 깨용거래 소소리네 마대치거래 가사 버리버틀리인비네 아주지 삼방에 버도장 인도산 대 마집시제 심 드레체비네 초진이 지잖아 컴주 잡이네 컴주 편도 첸 용고면서도 가르잖아 심 남도 내베고는 지 컴주를 잡이네 대지 가르소에 수수지 아 남지기 제로 된지지 샤르바 심 남도 만에베지 컨트롤 사대나 엔디 나로 타주 간데 체비나 심 남도 만에베 ngane sim nyomongbe wando somwe kwane tajo khari shebina ma che no ru chara do syong de yin du san di gyun zen den da di ga chue tin je da yewa che a di ka sa di da ka sa di ga chue da ji chawa so ma le action on da din di ya yewa che che ene ka sa gi action la ga chue da yegdu na so yong gore 게임에 나서 용거래 상에 나서 용거래 대라 팀베가 아주 레슨한 라도 대라 팀베 리스폰스 제고래 다 이내양 가사 코랑 그 정신디 에너지 녀바메버스는 라도 카메버스는 라도 라와메버스는 라도 다 딘지 내다로 차디에 윈두산 엔 대래양 아주 그 뒤에 미네야 구양 그 삼다 다나 신기 understand each other and understanding 니지 거나 this 계속 있어요.
Like for example, if someone were to sue you, then that lawsuit itself is not something that we would meditate upon compassion for. No matter for that lawsuit or that court action, we'd have to respond to it. You do need to respond to it. However, for the individual who is suing you, then you should not, then if you were to get angry at them and to hold a grudge against that individual, then that would only disturb your mind. it would increase the afflictions. And all that would do is make yourself unhappy. And so then whatever that individual has done, it makes it even stronger, makes you even more uncomfortable. Actually, when we think about it, when you are being sued, then if you can let your mind rest naturally while you are being sued, and think about it, if your mind is resting naturally, then you can think about it rationally. When you've thought about the action rationally, then you can make an appropriate response to that action. If, on the other hand, you are overcome by the afflictions, if you are not relaxed, if you are not resting naturally, then you will be under the control of the afflictions, and whatever it is that you do will be mistaken, or there will be a danger of going wrong. And so for that reason, we need to distinguish between the individual and their action. There are various different actions that they can do, and they merit various different types of responses, and we need to give the appropriate sort of response. However, that individual is not to blame. It's not their fault. They're under the control of the afflictions. This is the situation that they're in, and so for that reason, we need to give them some space and try. It is important for us to have understanding and compassion for the individual.
다이네 딘데지 가사시엔 요모 와도 교가다 안에 지 가사시엔디 가수래 요몽기 치점 요몽기 가수래다 봐 온규 나라 취여다 내지 가서 초와 차버스기야 지래야 얘네야 소수기 봐 정규기 요몽베 요몽버티서다 지 가수래 요몽버티 좀 오시야바다 녀모베 교 모쳐봐. 다 딘데지 뭐종의 의미나? 안 가사 생기 셴대야 버리버대야 지 녀모베 가르지 왕도 큐르바레스 원주 왕도 큐르스유르베디 삼동알라 가하고서도 인두상에라 가사르니 녀모베 왕도 치들 큐르스 녀모베 셴왕도 치들 큐르스 다 딘데디 Cordelia, some libertan, Carse, Ticolia, whatever Chawade, Kismer Chari.
But before we are able to really develop a feeling for how it is that other sentient beings, that other individuals are controlled by their afflictions and the extent to which they are controlled by their afflictions, we first need to examine the afflictions within our own being. We need to recognize the afflictions within our own being. If we do not, then it will be difficult for us to comprehend how it is that other sentient beings are controlled by the afflictions, or to the extent to which they are controlled by their afflictions. And so for that reason, we need to understand very well how it is that the afflictions have control.
제자다 녀몽바데 톱치중 그래요. 안다는 신기 머리바데 how much dark somewhere 머리바데 머리비 민바 낙보 치점이야. 다는 신기 시다가 메디 에너지 메기 납스란다 시다가 메기 가르쳐다 트레드버디 치점이야. 진짜 거래야 소수 규여비체 소수 냠수용으로 치 하고 치지. 근데 셰도비는 에네 신에 버리보다 카메 나랑 장을 벨렌지 아니 그 셴버리볼 카메 셴버리볼이야 네바메서서 지금 삼로 동시에 버지 용거래 삼정기였어.
So we have to have some experience. We have to have some understanding about how strong the afflictions actually are. We need to have an experience of how dark the blackness of ignorance actually is. We need to feel the heat of anger. We need to know these and understand them. Only once we have that can we really comprehend how it is that others are under the control of the afflictions.
Nyomoba gyongwa sheba saade. Chikaru nyomoba da ngazo kaduine nyomoba gyongwa sheba saade ne izimiji chenshi dene somar. Chamba de shishin chenshi dene ana hakoko ya mato chenshi madembe ina. Ani nyomo kora ngazo ji kontro mangbo sanyo ya re ngazo. 다가나 신기 디모베 왕게 디모 마시베 왕게 벨레가 논주 막고 진요야래 나는 지금 되샤 봐 스니 다 간다 진짜기 논주 막고 진요야 이내야 디 냠수 용화지 예비네야 디 가서 녀모방 어쳐야라 펜종세 장 도요 말아 녀모비 경 어쳐야 디 인두사티 가르쳐서는 이지미지 전시에 대한 거야 녀모비 경 어쳐야 셔발래 전시에 대한 거야 돼 계집시다 차대요 아래 섬정이
But for us to recognize the fault of the afflictions, in order for us to recognize the afflictions, we need to use our mindfulness and awareness. We need to understand this. If we do not have any mindfulness and awareness, how many times have we made mistakes out of anger? How many times have we made mistakes out of delusion? And how many times have we been wrong out of desire? We've experienced these many times, but such experiences have not helped us at all. And the reason is that it is extremely important for us to use mindfulness and awareness.
Nyomo basadliya gyongö sinyale ji karure ngö sin kala naso yusar sam chingdos ngarasam ta nyomo sa de kaji yoreslan nyomo geji shidong sa ji namji shiol da geji shidong sa de masin gebang ma ja ga ji mangsi de ji ba geji shidong sa de 이지미지 게지다 시동스 저리신도 지야외면은 지 삼성야지 망보예발이야 되지한테 게지 시동사 민저도 와 놈의 게보드서 좀 게지 시동 알아서라와 좀 게지 시동 좀 게지 시동데 오늘네 지 가르르디 디디디디 가능스럽다리 제번에 니마를 지 게보 자오잖아데 게보디 민스나 조사 말아 게지 시동데 dine indusan tadi ji mangse de ji sar tadi ji mangbu yewe ki sar chi ngone jena ge zma do yesa mar ha le na ge go je ji shi dong su shi man ro ganda ta ganda ji shi yo ta ganda nyomo mangbu ji yo ara dan dor du bi ne ta azu nam ji nyomo tusum shi ga ara 제가 nyomo tusum di su gi gyöngwen진로 gyöngwen진야라 깔라 유서서 까와다 나와 깔래 카보다 안에 나와 스머르 따든지 개발 유서서 좀 챙겨
But there are varying degrees of difficulty to recognizing the faults of the afflictions, I think. Actually, when we think about the afflictions, how many different afflictions are there? It's said in the scriptures that there are 84,000 afflictions, but I think sometimes when we say 84,000, that this just means a large number. It's like a plural in ancient Indian texts. It doesn't mean that there are exactly 84,000 and you can count all 84,000 of the afflictions. It just means that there are a lot. It's like with the ancient Indian kings. Sometimes it is said that the kings had 84,000 queens. If you have 84,000 queens, if the king were to visit a different queen every night, it would still be more queens than he could visit in his entire lifetime. And so I think that actually it does not mean that they're exactly 84,000. It just means like they're a lot. Maybe it's like 8. 8 is a lot, so 8 is like 84,000. And so, at any rate, there are many different afflictions. But if we want to summarize all of them, we can summarize them in the 3 poisons of the afflictions. When we talk about recognizing the faults of the 3 poisons of the afflictions, then I think that there's a distinction in how easy or difficult it is to recognize those faults.
지단 쉐빈 두스파 대비나 구림적 쉐비나 가와다 라베 구림적 쉐비나 치마치마트스 가 랑아망아마츠 라와르 사마타미나 당보디 에네 콘드 디슬레라르시 콘드 게응에스야 디슬레라르 드네 rimba니바딘 되샤 디슬 텔레레라르시 텔레칼라카르시 아니지 디문사데 한 텔레칼라카르시 야 마시 참서 소소리 너무 가르쳐야 이네 가르슈 쳐야 이네 디 경은 지야 디슬레라르시 예베소스 되지 요디 알아 다들이 뉴스나 딱 간다냐 딜이야 지 가사 수수 개발 연구를 지당 고랑 제베 있는 딜레르지 대다 공도 쉬는 신기 가와다 라웨 개발을 샤빈 지당 제비나 당기 공도 쉬는 신이 이내 딱 가사 수수 개발 대야 가사 수수를 너무 가르쳐 차고이네 디디지 디경은 지야래 다 경은 지야래 라스 두산아디 그 응원지야의 그 고급 망아서는 장도 데 visible 사람으로다 응원세 되버지에 인자 디 응원지야디 갈래라요 응원세 되마도 또
So generally, when we look at the 3 poisons, there's sort of an order that's of easier and more difficult. The first ones being easier, the later ones being more difficult to recognize. And the first one, the one that is easiest to recognize as being a fault, is anger. And the second would be desire. That's just a little bit more. That's a little bit more difficult than anger to recognize its faults. And the third one would be ignorance or delusion. This is the hardest to recognize. But there are also distinctions based upon the sort of relative strength of each of the poisons within any particular individual. That can make it easier or more difficult to recognize some of the others. And so in general, because of the distinctions in individuals, though the order is in general, as I just mentioned, but because of the different fortunes and dispositions of individuals, and because of the relative strength of the different afflictions, that sometimes there are some that they're easier to recognize because you've got more opportunities, and they're more evident for you, and so they become easier to recognize.
간다량 가르쳐다지 녀몽 배경 의신사디 베나지 배세나나 녀몽 배경 쉐쉐란 다디사 가셔딘데요 배세 망보다 용게디스 녀몽 배경 쉐쉐란 배세나는 쉐쉐도 마 교령도 다지 배세나는 마 쉐쉐도 마 교령도스 다디 가르쳐다 고랑 고아르지도 이기레 마도 고랑 냠스 용스게 말아 드린즈 베세나 마셰샤바디 안 마교령 딘드가 말해 라메지 순고도서 라메 가산데데시에서인데 데데시에서인데 디드가 말 다디데 뇽모베 교영을 신사데 소소랑게 냠스 뇽오네 간다르지 베는 미지기 고르라 미셰바 미지기 고르 계시셰바 텔레 소소기 무엇을 미기 통바되니 개발을 디 개발을 제가 지고 시에 되면은 미지고 시에 되면은 아주 남성으로도 하고 그러더니 무슨 잼바르디 통통 말아 무슨 잼바데 아니 소소 미기 통용이서 신이지 무슨 잼바르디 동도래 다가는 신기 녀모바 경어세 사데 무슨 제바 자 아주 저기 소수기 냠송용에 시에 제거하지 디케점을 잘 유스래 다 퇴삼 공성비 냠송용 사나 좀 더 드리지람 좀
In any case, when we say, these are the faults of the afflictions, maybe if we're someone who's read a lot of texts, someone who's read texts, they will say, oh, the faults of the afflictions, and then they can list them, repeating them as they're said in the text. But that is understanding. That's not experience of it. Or maybe they'll say, oh, the Lama said this. This is what the Lama said, but that also is not experience. So just repeating what is written in the text is not enough, and just saying the Lama taught this is not enough. Instead, what we need to do in order to recognize the afflictions is we need to experience the faults of the afflictions in our own beings. Otherwise, like if we were talking about a person, there's a difference when you're talking about a person if you have seen and know that person, as opposed to if you haven't seen them and don't really know them. If you haven't seen that person and don't really know them, then you can talk about them. You're talking about the person, but it's not the same as if you've really seen that person in person, real, right there. If you've really got that direct experience, then there's more about it. Likewise, with the faults of the afflictions, there's something that we need to see and experience directly and evidently for ourselves. We need to have the experience of the listening, contemplating, and the meditation.
가한다래 녀모바 지 가르레 무엇이다 녀모베 교영와시에서나라도 야는 녀모베 교연사가 치리 퇴바 마게비지 녀모바 와시에서나 저것도다 지버르지래 가한다란 디 와시에서 잘래야 그뒤에 니마 당와르시 디 딜이야 저와고래 effort 배주시네 니마 당와르시지 그뒤에 지 상로르다 그 간제제도 그人心 간제지면 특히 나서하기 거네 특히 나서래 다나신기 different angle different view somewhere 근데 토네 초 나서 탑 나서다 되는 다나신기 다다 나서지 토네 네 가수에 니마 다바르지 다 간다 수술이야 규모시지 되는지 녀모바 무엇이야 되게 토리미나 배주체과에 말인데 배주 맞지 말아야 아니 무엇이야 돼 가라 가보시라래
So in recognizing the faults of the afflictions, or we can leave off that extra word, recognizing the faults of the afflictions and recognizing the afflictions are more or less the same. It's something we need to make effort at every day. We need to try to do it every day. We always need to be looking, what are they like? What's their nature like? How do they function? We need to use various different methods. We need to look at them from various different angles, look at them from different viewpoints. And so looking at them from different angles and different viewpoints, we need to examine ourselves every day and continually so that we can recognize the afflictions. Otherwise, if we do not make any effort, then it will be difficult to recognize them.
다당아 저기 녀모비 교회에서 아주 시가라 이나 오늘 전에 녀모바 그런 게 교회에 쓰여니까 녀모바서 아직 대여시 그 교회에서 대여시 가수수 예비입니다. 디디스는 바지 녀모비 교회 차사지 그 세메베 따르지 레섬청이 녀모바서 아직 예비지 그 교회의 엑스트라 교회 예비지 녀모바 코란다 교회니 정신 집어서 녀모바 코란 교인이라시니 봐. 나 녀모바 코란 가져요. 반지지 봐. 마더베야 녀모바서 안 되지. 반지서야決定了반지서야지. 여기서 들리지 많이 봐. 녀모바 차상선을 당도. 안다 초철리서만 다디 반지이면지. 뭐 신투나? 아니 바지. 뭐지 아버지도 따르지. 면도 좀 챙겨요.
So when we think about recognizing the faults of the afflictions, if it were something where there are the afflictions on one side and the faults of the afflictions on the other side, and we were trying to recognize the faults as somehow separate from the afflictions, then that would be one thing that would be about identifying the faults. But actually, the afflictions and their faults are not separate. There's no difference. The nature of the affliction is the fault itself. There is no difference. The affliction itself is the fault. The affliction itself is the problem. And so if we were to think that there are afflictions and then somewhere in addition to the afflictions there are the faults of the afflictions which are somehow different from them, then we're not really recognizing them. In order to really, truly, and fully recognize the afflictions, we need, if we recognize that the afflictions themselves are the faults, and that the afflictions themselves are what we need to eliminate, then that is a sign of really, truly recognizing the afflictions.
ane tele ji mise ge time limit samara the time 가서다 table de jor la kala khabsta bena ngaran de chasawina ane ben nyom ba ji gyeng ge zen de lo nga zhu ju tinde de go do samsar chona shi tinde du sane tinde du sane di 가서 딜 프로세스 될래야 들리지 고겨름 오늘 전에 경험해야 될 가만지 다디 겐 그래 대수지 소수기 가르에 awareness 사마로에 다디기 뉴벤 담베이나 대수지기 가르에 경험진 라완로시 다이네 진행 인도산에 기부 담바사데 컨디션 능기 기부 담바사데 기류네 기부 담바체는 게요 말아요 다가나시 기부 담바 망체 담부 고수지 강에 망보냐 라바도지 눈주이 첨부를 세제 기부 담바 망체 담부 눈주이 첨부를 세 눈주이 첨부 텔레덴시 관주지 랑으로 세제 아는 문진네 랑오시 에너지 랑교 시에네 다데 견디 연대게 좋아서 집에 더네 따간다 고주가서에 눈주가 나는 야랑시 아니 간다르지 견디 연대도 차도 다데 기부담에 키주도 되고 되는 주사 디균센데네 아주기 미진한다 교망고 연구래 라버둥에 디스교아래 겨왕지 켈랭게르 심비나 코 통모면에 아주 딱 간다 교인기 풍부르 점지 감로로 쿠르제 용데야래 제상 체 미진들이 교인들의 중부대기 수수 시부지기다 가서 냥에 기다 로범 이체 시부차고 아스케면도 다 조디 텐제베다 디베기 마 냄냄에도 디베 원에 디베 쿠르로 디원이야 랑토브르 체과데 계속 시라르시샤 대인주디 준센데네 다디 교녀목이 다가서 교녀니기 교녀디 겐도 차라지 다디지 듭시 차비나 안 교녀 상월로 바지 교녀여바데 거진시 상상로지 다데 리지 샤르하기 좋아요라스
When we think about our faults, when we say faults, then we can think about the things that have happened in our past, what has happened to us because of the afflictions in this life. And I think if we do this, if we think about the problems the afflictions have given us, then this is a method, or this is an aid in recognizing the afflictions. It's a condition, or an aid, or a method for us to recognize the faults of the afflictions. And so, for that reason, if we think about how many different mistakes we've made, how many different faults and problems we've had in our being, then the more aware we can be of those. The more, if we have the strength to be able to be aware of those, then we will be able to recognize the faults. It'll be easier for us to recognize the faults. We often talk about great beings, and when we talk about great beings, they are not people who are free of faults from birth. Instead, they are people who have gained experience. They've made big mistakes. Because they have made big mistakes, those. They've understood themselves. They've recognized their mistakes, known themselves, and because of that, they have been able to rise above their own mistakes. And in this way, the mistakes they have made have become an aid to them in becoming a great being. And so, in this way, rising above their mistakes and rising above our faults is a sign of being a great being. In particular, if we're people who talk about reincarnation and past lives, then we have a mountain the size of Mount Meru, of a mountain of faults the size of Mount Meru that we are carrying. We have this burden upon ourselves. And if we are to think about that and we are discouraged and depressed about it and unable to do anything about it, that does not help us. In that way, if that happens, then we are just oppressed by all of our wrongs and our misdeeds. It is important for us to be able to rise above them all. And so for that reason, we need to transcend the faults themselves. And if we do this, then it seems to me that the faults will become an aid for us.
단도나 기부담을 사야돼 윤den기 기부담을 차비인다 교인기 기부담을 차비인다 섬다도 교인 첨부체 된 노주 첨부체 될 때네 노주 요사로 체 된지 아니 기부담을 차야지 원사를 첨부 차야 당분의 윤den지에 저 미세 원사르스게 게스게 민다고 다 내주시래 다들의 마음 진주자네 관계 달라 편다 외와셔 강시 신도 미리 뇌체나 신년 담버 따와슈
So basically, when we're thinking about a great being, a great person, then that great person, they're not a great person because they have great qualities. They're a great person because of the faults, because of overcoming the faults. It is because at first they have the great problems and the great faults, and they overcome them. That is what is amazing. If that person, from the very first, had all the great qualities, there'd be nothing special and nothing amazing about them being a great being, about their being a great being. So now to continue with the text, the 6th verse reads, "Even when someone who I have helped or in whom I have placed great hopes mistreats me very unjustly, I will view that person as a true spiritual teacher."
Or maybe the best spiritual teacher, like Thangpa. True. Best. Doesn't matter. 다 들려요. 어디지 수수기 봐. 디가서도 수수기 봐 팬다. 미질이야. 팬도 먹고 싶지. 적보이지긴 맞지. 아래와 첨부해야지. 딘데지기 수수로다. 고거를 요 다나 신기 수수로야. 네버를 제는 안당 아주 쉬우지 선방 거거든. 잘래. 수수 자지기 네버 채워래. 수수 녀지. 딘데지 가사지기 안 네버 채비. 디센 밤처럼. 어제다 이내야 딘데비 가사들이 아주 가르쳐서 신년 담바 the best 가져다 뒤 딱오래스 로정 시리사 가르쳐서는 로종다를 채워다 종다를 로디 가르쳐 야채를 당 것도 종다 채고도 산 안다 갈래 하드스 미세 수된시 갈래 하드스 포인트 수된시다 송구야래 제사 더 디케이션 있어.
So when there's someone whom you have helped and you've tried to do your best to, and someone whom you have great hopes in, when that person harms you, or they fool you, or they trick you, then that is even more discouraging, even more upsetting to us than if there were someone who were an enemy. If the enemy harms us, or if the enemy harms us in any ways, then it is even more discouraging than that. But for that sort of person is the great spiritual teacher for us. And the reason is because we need to train our mind, we need to develop our mind, we need to increase our compassion. And that person is pointing out and showing us where the difficulties are.
제가 다초에 냠는 제사데 tinsan 미망무지 가서 총계나는 가시 미가시 총계나는 busy life somewhere and then stress life 총계나는 지 자와사버시 다나 신기 에너지 레 뉴슈 사보 다 진짜게 내가 방법치 인도상 참참 weekend somewhere 다지 지 선주된들이야 and there's never 받은들이야 신체 and the result is somewhere spiritual result of the Indijina Chin. And it is the Kuzu Karjasana, that spiritual meditation, and then spiritual, and the yoga, Dana Shingi, Takanda, massage the Yomartina, that in Rabachian, Takanda Kiburus, and this one, and Suzuki. Stress is relief, and Takanda. 가서 지 당마를 샤 쌤 당마를 쌤지 가서 오 가서 이 this 심볼을 차야 근데 아니 아마 가서 제가 진짜 상당히 지 최세스도 산 데스 가서 바지 마사지 잡지 다는 this 바 relief 잡지 다 진짜 상당하지 되는 거 that is choosing the temporary. Oneer the marita, the temporary is another Takanda di Hasre. Men the Mavis, Takanda, also the pen peel summer daji Sujak mayor, the sessions, men when I may say. And I'm the Suja mayor session, such Madoji, that's a men when I moment to go. 제가 오늘 전에 최냐면 진짜 가서래. 코디 가서래. 된접지래. exercise 접지다 다나 신기 extensive 지잖아 extensive exercise something 다지 슈첨보. 대대 등기 삼다분하지 디지 가서 지 comfortable 다나 신기 가서 easy down the yo man lela tambo chi chena kale khabu uncomfortable uneasy 진짜기 고 가서 진짜 처음 한번 연구해서 최치입니다. extensive exercise 진짜 비슷해. 제상 다다디 소설 내가 챙겨야 소설 저밤 소소하게 된 가지기 수술 내버게야 다 텔신이 다 맞다 그러시지 디 내다버리면도 디 당기 시에는 신인데 마사지 데 and relax 다 가지고 디 내는 제면도 와 드린주사 디 하고 거도 계속 있어.
These days, when we say practicing the Dharma, and many of us live in cities and we have busy, stressful lives, jobs, and difficulties in our lives, and a lot of pressure and many different things that we have to do. And then on the weekends, we go to a resort. We go to a spiritual resort. We're going to do meditation, do some yoga, get some massage, and we go there. It's wonderful. Relieve so much stress. It's so relaxing. And our mind feels good. Our mind feels peaceful. It's so satisfying, so wonderful.
Fresh.
fresh. And so we often think that practicing the Dharma is like that. We should go, feel like all our stress has been washed away, feel such relief. But actually, when we think about it, that's just a temporary benefit. That's not really the benefit that practicing Dharma should do. Actually, that's not the medicine. That Dharma is not medicine for that. That's like pain-relieving medicine. That's a pain reliever. There are many different pain relievers in the world, but actually, that's in many different medicines you can take to relieve pain. But actually, when we're talking about practicing the Dharma, it's like intensive training, intensive exercise training, or intensive exercise training. When you're doing intensive training, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of strength. There's nothing comfortable and nothing easy about it. You have to work hard. It's difficult. And so it's not comfortable, it's not easy. And so this is the feeling you get when you're doing really intensive training. So it's like doing this intensive exercise. And so when we look at it this way, when we see those friends of ours who then turn around and harm us, then it becomes easy to see how they are the greatest of our spiritual teachers. So, when we're practicing the Dharma, it's not so easy as just going and having stress reduction and relaxing. It's not like that. So this is something that's important for us to understand.
신의 담았으라고 가르쳐 시계의 신의 사디 가르쳐에 다들 맛이 안 됐어. 다들 맛이 있어. 너는 좀 기회에 편지 많은 거는 비 마에 내도 동에 상에 달라는 버쇼.
The seventh verse reads, "In brief, directly or indirectly, I will offer help and happiness to all my mothers, and secretly take upon myself all their hurt and suffering."
다디 다신 제외기 변도 변 동랭이 미버차로 다신 제외 동랭이 미버차 다디 디고 송유엽다 성도.
So this verse is
다 오늘 전에 렌토에 사데 가오시라래 다데 다 예배는 이제 간다지 수수기 셈기 그런 거 하는 근데 렌토에 왕다면이냐 수수 렌야 그 저지도 이해 되지다 다가는 신기 된데 확섬 이해 되지 된고.
Here it says, "And secretly take upon myself." So secretly here, secret in the one hand refers to it being secret. On the other hand, it also is like if we were trying to show the other person, for the other person to understand, I'm going to take your suffering. Here, I'll give you all my happiness. If we were doing it to show the other person, then it becomes one of the 8 worldly dharmas. So here, secretly means that without the other person knowing. For us to actually take the suffering of another being is extremely difficult. But instead, what this means is having the motivation in our mind so that if we are able, that we are ready to take the suffering of others, and to show that we have, and to develop the strong resolve to take it upon ourselves.
미가시지 삼례 나로래야지 가르쳐 심지기 현전 주발래야 가장 하는 게 진짜 요한이도 땅 아디스 저러 첨부를 차고도스다 저러 첨부 디즈 망보지 아지 gem주 나로시스 네 답은 안 디즈 도바르사다 망보지 그 간지 아이나 선사로 다 도바사르네 따이네 우리 망고야 김치 나로나 가르스나 심진 생기 현재다 미교보 먹고 싶도스 안 다는지 미 this 로종 고가면 망고시라도 감지 가져에 베이직 서머를 서외기 시제기 서외 튕기면 와시라는 것도 로종 매워시라는 것도 내가 명망 제가 의외로 차비는 디즈육 현재 중에서 뜻인데 망고 좋았어 다 얘네들이 가보르지 잡아 가서다디 technical problems or 가서 다디 깔래 가보르지 저도 와 다디 강갈로 의외가 차나 의외가 차나 야 의제서 빵고대 매우샤로다 다디 인도산에 다 간다 강갈로 의외가 사듯이 차다 깔아 가보시라고 다 간다 딘데 인도산에 양 가셔야 되는데 나한테 왕처 첨부를 차고도 다 심지 신도 주고도 이나 다다 왕처 개개 뉴버를 개개면도 제가 왕처 뉴버여지 제로치스다 뭐는 제로치스 되는 용이 그런저 삼동다 야부샤래 이나야 인지미지 심지 신도 주발 다 딘데지 창마 딘데 차고나 가다 가버려 심지 신도 중개에 상으로 저거여봤다 왕여봤지 차대 데 의니 주기 의니 주지 말았다데 데 차데 의니 주 차도 말았다 다 이내 심지 신주 주변에 지미지 저버친다 아니 와지에 버지 지미지 차고 요 말았어
Sometimes people think, I have a lot of people coming and asking me, and they say, I need to do something to benefit other people, so I need to get rich. I need to be rich. I need to have a lot of money. And when people say this to me, I think I get a little suspicious about it. It's like, if you're going to benefit others, why do you need to be rich? Why do you need so much money? But then when you talk about it, they say the reason is, well, there's so many poor people in the world. There's so many people who have no education. And if I'm rich, then I would be able to provide these people with a basic livelihood. I'd be able to provide them with a basic education. And so I need to get rich in order to be able to benefit others. But actually, it's kind of difficult. If we were all to get rich, then there wouldn't be any poor people left to help. So that's a little bit difficult. And it'd be difficult for everyone to get rich. Other people think, I need to be really influential. I need to be powerful and influential. And if I'm powerful and influential, then I'll be able to benefit others. Right now, I want to benefit others, but I've got no influence and I've got no power. How can I benefit others? But, if everyone, again, were powerful and influential, then what would it do? So, if we think that in order to bring benefit to others, we have to be rich and powerful, and that's actually not how it is. That is not the way things actually are. It's not necessary to be rich and powerful in order to bring benefit to others.
전주什么 아주 남기 시어라 전주什么사 과에 하고 말았어 다 소소네 뭐 공부숨 친사는 수 전주什么수 전주什么미 하고 말았어 but street dog 비 겨버지빈 전주什么인시르 이나 가서 하고 말아 근데 인주산다 전주什么다 전주什么산의 심진이 현대 심진 현대야 편도치딩이 가사 기부지들 소로 전주什么망고지 야래 심지 전주什么인바 다는 지금 아주 kuzu 아주 된다 야 편바 주구이야 봐 편데 주구이야 봐 아주 하마 sometimes I feel sorry for them somebody 전주什么아주 하는 거 말 제자지 gratitude 샤르 좀 된다 sometimes 베베기 주구이 넘로디 야고도 없어 주구 tradition 그래서 지디 recognize 저거 전주什么다 전주什么그래서 다 가시 전주什么가시 한 전주什么이나 하고 말다 recognition 사고야 돼. 심진 현준 체베 누바. 가서 되지 가서 사투고야 돼. 계속 시작해. 되지 사투고 의미나? 알았어. 초보 차이네야. 현준 두롱기 현준 주베 누바 예베 초보 차도래. 초보 마사이네야. 현준 주베 누바 예베기. 딱 한다. 가사 잘해. 빵고차나 현준 주베 누바 예베 빵고치. 다 되지 차도야. 딱 오늘 제가 말했어요. 인도사 디균선데네. 아들에게 수술lunga 이송 돌이야. 베나도 베나 셈 차샤비 다 심진 신의 신들 주섭섭 잠바다 자와사지 펜토지 오늘도 만어로지 가서 셈리야요 말해. 제 메주사네. 의외나 다다다 의지 좋은 지 제상선으로 줘야돼. 의원의 중백걸 삼는 줄살. 뽕뽕망버지 보드말로 권해야 찍찍인 이찍인 미만 된다 숨치긴 시제 삼바자긴 모더스 랑가수인지 쓰도 아니 보드로 자 선이 미니스터 톱세드사 고상게 사다요 아 된다 잘 망고 손에 안 참서 당분에디 삼절 야보 매비나 의기야 미딩 교화단도
Actually, we don't really know where the bodhisattvas are. We don't know who the bodhisattvas are. Until we reach the state of a bodhisattva ourselves, we can't tell where who is or is not a bodhisattva. Perhaps that dog in the street dog may well be a bodhisattva, but we just don't know. We can't recognize. Really, a bodhisattva, an individual who works for the benefit of other beings is a bodhisattva. And we don't know who they are. We can't tell who they are, but they do everything they can to help us. Sometimes I feel sorry for such bodhisattvas because we don't recognize them, and since we don't recognize them as being bodhisattvas, we don't feel grateful for them. We are real ingrates towards them. Maybe this is actually one good thing about the tulku system in Tibetan. Tibetan, the tulku system, because they have the tulku system, are at least able to recognize, this person's a bodhisattva, we should be grateful to this person. We have someone that we could be able to, that we can be grateful to. Otherwise, we just wouldn't know. There are beings who are benefiting others without us knowing at all. Sometimes they're engaged in activities in a way that we aren't sure whether they're doing something that it's benefiting others or doing something that harms the others. And so there are many such bodhisattvas. Really, if we are going to do something to benefit others, it has to be something that we do with our bodies, or with our speech, or with our mind. And so what we need to do now, right now, our bodies, speech, and minds aren't a sufficient basis or aren't a sufficient support for us to be able to really benefit others. And so we need to gather all of the qualities of our body that will, speech and mind, that will allow us to bring benefit to others. We need to make our body into a basis with which we can benefit others. We need to make our speech into such a basis. We need to make our mind into such a basis. And so it is through our speech. We need to be able to benefit other beings with our speech. We need to be able to benefit other sentient beings with our mind. We need to be able to do things physically with our body that will bring benefit to other beings. In any case, we need to be able to gather the virtue with our body, speech, and mind. It is important for us to develop the capability to accomplish all other sentient beings. And if we are able to do so, then if we should happen to be rich, then we will be able to benefit sentient beings. And even if we are not rich, we will have the capacity to benefit other sentient beings. We can be a beggar who is able to help other sentient beings. And so there are qualities that we need to develop in our body, speech, and mind in order to really be able to bring benefit to other sentient beings. And if we have these qualities of body, speech, and mind, then we will be able to truly benefit others without any mistake. We need to have that within our minds. If we lack that, even if we had money, we would think, I want to do something to help others before we have the money, and then once we get the money, then we wouldn't be able to do it. It's like candidates who are standing for an election. Before the election, they make all sorts of promises. I will build this road, I will do this, I will make these schools. And then when they become the minister, it's as if they've already achieved Buddhahood. Even if you were to get a lot of money, it's quite possible that if you do not have the right intention and actions, if you don't have those, then it's quite possible that the money can change you and you will be influenced by your money.
대다군게 최기기 도배 점에 마바 추군 유머를 시베를 세메 신화래주 쇼 제반되는 게시 랑탕바 도지신기 송오 조소 싸망갈람 디메다 양디
I will learn to keep all these practices untainted by thoughts of the 8 worldly concerns. May I recognize all things as like illusions and without bondage gain freedom from attachment. Thus spoke the spiritual master Langtang Dorje Senge. This is completed Sarva Mangalam.
That means that dinner. 딱 공도 시에베 냠런데다 탐제장 추기기 팀에 마바바 에너지 최 탐지 규머르 시에베기 딱 한데 규머르 시에베 돈이기 가서 다와다 마제베 타네 에너지 셴바메베 안에 딱 한다 중화를 쳐서 딱 거래 중화를 쳐셔지 사들 소인자
And so what this verse is, it's saying, may we be able to do all of this practice untainted by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns. And may we be able to do this practice never separate from the view of all phenomena as illusions, that is the view of emptiness. And by doing this, may we gain freedom from the bonds of samsara.
다 텔미세다 리시가스 케메스다 간다라 단데즈라다 단 남규가 저지 가르레 최계사데 남규 루스라다 하다 천리게 된 주비야래야 된 주비야가 특시 망부 쉬지 알았어 안 천대 된 주비야가 특시 망부 쉬지 알아 되네 인주산에 지 최인지미지 천리게 된 주비야래야 인지미지 최냐면 제거야 해요 말았어 천리게 된 주비야라 특시 오늘 전에 딱 간다 남인나서 저민나서지 지 가르셔에 바 나서지 알아 되래 천리게 된 주비야 점이나 되래 최고야 해요 드린도 최사데 최치마 편집을 된 주야사. 조디 조시 용기시하다. 제 최를 전디 된 주야도 용도 쓰는데 조디 최치마 편집을 된 주야지 무슨 거래. 다 이면에 다 될 최치마 사들이 이세를 년나 마도베 다 최치마 편집 된 주야라서나 다들 시다지 나를 편도시다면도 섬사를 정거다. 선제를 편도면은 아니 최치마 사데 아이 the interest came as the samsara 용어로 제자는 기부숨 사대 기부숨 시에는 기부 타마데 지 가르레데 기부 타마데라 침 가르레 체치만 예소숨기 지 가르레 예소숨리 타르에 탄되걸로 예배지고 알아서 마타야 다 이네야 기부 타마델이야 조회니 여체 조의 패버니 조들라 다들 권슈는 신기 지지방 예소숨기 예소숨을 탄대도 로여 드리고 와 패버델라 첸디 코나를 되니 된 거지 첸디마도 지치만 상마단 게 제가 다 대상 뒤줄이야 엄마는 러림 뒤주나로래야 기부 타마 패버데 시라숨마 다 디디디디 게 말았어 다 대상 뒤줄을 펴지 기부 중의 디나는 파버디 개체를 잡아 천디래야 아주 저 편도차 개어르면서 삼도한테 개체를 잡아
When we talk about the 8 worldly concerns, there are many different things that we can do to bring benefit in this life. If what we want to do is bring benefit in this life, then it's actually not necessary for us to practice the Dharma. There are many different things we can do to accomplish the needs of this life, and Dharma is not necessary for those. The Dharma is primarily to accomplish our aims for the next life and future lives. So it's not impossible that it will benefit us in this life, but primarily it is for our future lives. However, sometimes we might not have any confidence. We may not believe in future lives. And if we do not believe in future lives, then you might think to ourselves, oh, there's no benefit. What point is there? If there's no point, I want something that's going to benefit me now and in this life. And if it doesn't benefit me now, then I'm not interested in it. Now, often in the Buddhist, in the teachings, we talk about the 3 different types of individuals. And of the 3 different types of individuals, the least individual, the lesser individual, is one who has the wish to free themselves from the lower realms in their future lives. And so this is like the minimum level for the lesser type of individual. But these days, I think actually we really have to talk about 2 types of the lesser individual. The primary...
They already have.
Huh?
Already in the text.
It's already in the text. It's already in the text that there are actually 2 types of the lesser individual. The primary one is, of course, the individual who wants to be free of the 3 lower realms in their next lifetime. But also there is the ordinary person who just is interested in the means of this life. So these days, even though most texts on the stages of the path do not focus on the ordinary lesser individual, now I think that actually the ordinary lesser individuals are extremely important. And that is very important that many people consider the benefit for this life to be very important.
천디 코나는 삼단데 준 다들이야 최계사 드시가는 야르사도 저 다들이르시샤 다딩사도 consumerism materialism 다들이 차에 민주산 민상 강가로베 미좀지에 잘라뇨 알아버지 주인데 다들이 상물로베 고메고사 상목해만 매비시 답베된 요양으로 제샤지 다간다 안다나지 advertise 디즈나로레베 obvious 상물로베 다들 시부지 다지 가서 마지 시에서 바바도 남로 푸지 제저로 obvious 저 파도디산 다이네 대망보 다연디산야 디스 attractive som다 디스 이데비 초체 다딘데지 말한데 지부지 제고 섬산로지 이데비 초체 에너지 바바 남 부르 안 돌로와도 남갈래야 롱기고 참장 아직 이런 영어만 써서 미지 나고 있다. 아드레인 주산에 진짜 체인 주산에 간다 advertisement 디즈는 아주 배 가서 가서다 간다 아주 배 blind som으로 롱아 쇠제 안 간다 비지 사모당놈에 람상 녀주가 하는 스타 디스어디 진짜 디즈서로 디즈 다 센들이 셴바사디 포지티브지 입니다. 다디즈입니다. 아주 센딜라 미지디 디기리 데바지 거이네야 디즈기 아니 가서 바르도 제바스나 인화 진짜기 인화 차차위나 안 된dengi 수수 미지 된다 되버지 할래 알아 가버 수용 요스래 진짜 디교제 되나 다 딘데기 정하다 말하고 그래서 다시 한번 마셔스금 다 디젤이야 다 디네 디젤이야 롱돼야 된다.
So here, with the 8 worldly concerns, this means primarily working for the benefit in this life. And when we talk about the 8 worldly concerns, working for the benefit of this life, then I think the way we need to explain it these days is like as consumerism or materialism. It's like we're all going to close our eyes and just buy anything. We won't consider whether we need things or not. We just go out and buy. Like you see the advertisements. Sometimes the advertising is pretty blatant. It's pretty obviously a fantasy. But still, you see it enough times and you start thinking to yourself, I want to be like that. I've talked about this example many times, the example of a motorcycle flying through the air. At first you say, yeah, okay, the guy flying the air. But then you see it enough times, you see it over and over again, and then it's like it captivates you, this image of the guy flying through the air, the clothes streaming behind them, the hair streaming behind. And sometimes I even see this and I think, oh, I'd like to be that. I'd like to try that myself sometime. So,
with the sunglasses.
Huh?
Sunglasses.
And with the sunglasses too, yeah. So it's like the advertising has blinded us, and we are no longer, and we will buy things without any thinking or examining. And so this is what we mean. It's like this sort of attachment, this sort of fixation in our minds. And so we do want to bring benefit and happiness for ourselves in this lifetime. And yet these advertisements and such, they distract us from what is really important. So I think that is all I need to say about this now. And next I would like to give the reading translation of the Medicine Buddha. Reading transmission.
Reading transmission, yeah. 다 담보들이야 제레스기 롱지 동이 너는 위도 제대로 제레스 주특 제레스 사다나 당동제보 주진 당동제보 지시 대진 동이 다 디젤이야 안에 가수르디 상계면한테 준 동이 안 디젤이야 주바로 nga주지 가시시 안 디젤은 하나 롱조이.
First, I would like to give the reading transmission for the sadhana of Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig, that was composed by the great Mahasiddha Thangpa Gyalpo. Following that, I'll give the reading transmission of the Medicine Buddha. Then we'll have 5 or 6 questions, following which I will leave.
Oh, not this one. Sangye judan soge jonamla jajubado dane yosu jedage jiso yebes rola benzir sangye drubar. Only me. Simjen damje dewada dewe gyodan dember gyuje donghe da donghe ye gyodan rabar donghe mebe dewa damba da men rabar gyuje nire chadan nidan Tanyum Shambola never Guruji Tosuka Gyusim Jengi, Jizu Begarandaved, Shile, Pasu Generes, Gazavas and Adin, Zenzum Doji Jengis, Chashi Dambo Tejans, Wani Shinrin Begans and Tadar Yen, Rudababe, Deos, Bamebe, Odinsi, Jamia Doji, Girum, Jotiman, Dawa Gabde. Jamne Gundung over Guru, Gunye Mago Gundo, Gazusan, Ula, Yeduzi, Jingen, Rula, Jere, Sela, Sansa, Gunye Mago Gundo, Gazusan, Ula, Yeduzi, Jingen, Rula, Jere, Sela, Sansa, Gunye Mago Gundo, Susan, Ula, Yeduzi, Jingen, Rula, Jere, Sela, Sansa, Tedrazi, Sada. Pabe Gulu was a Madane and Chuja, Sinu Dava Jengishin, Adrian Rolling as Jeres on Goson. Not all don't ye may Guru. Tang other name to Jeduche would do. 제도
Now please repeat after me.
Om
Om
Mani
Mani
Padme
Padme
Hum
Hum
Om
Om
Mani
Mani
Padme
Padme
Hum
Hum
Om
Om
Mani
Mani
Padme
Padme
Hum
Hum
Omani Padme 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 Omani Omani Padme Dashi Luna Babe Kodara Ige Jube Chendo Ishi Chimbyo Long Gewande Nyudo Da Sene Swan Rugyo Nen Jowa Jigyamalu Di Salang Parasho Tuji Gwela Nyobe Jenesi Kasa Tuji Gwela Nyobe Kaya Jomden Ayi Tuji Gwela Nyobe Jomden De Sensum Debe Ngen Ridung Ese Dosum Nese Sange Menge Medruya Yewela Shanza Lo Jendusin
Please repeat.
Tadyata
Tadyatha
Om
Om
Bekhanze
Bekadze
Bekhanze
Bekadze
Maha
Maha
Bekhanze
Bekadze
Raja
Radza
Samungati
Samutgate
Swaha
Swaha
Tadyata
Tadyatha
Om
Om
Bekhanze
Bekadze
Bekhanze
Bekadze
Maha
Maha
Bekhanze
Bekadze
Raja
Raja
Samungati
Samutgate
Swaha
Swaha
Tadyata
Tadyatha
Om
Om
Bekhanze
Bekadze
Bekhanze Maha
Maha
Bekhanze
Bekadze
Raja
Raja
Samungati
Samutgate
Swaha
Swaha
Tadyata Om Bekhanze Bekhanze Maha Bekhanze Raja Samungati Swadhyata 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 Bekhanze Bekhanze Maha Bekhanze Bekhanze Maha Bekhanze Raja Samungati Swadhyata Bekhanze Raja Samungati Swadhyata Bekhanze Bekhanze Maha Bekhanze Raja Samungati Swadhyata Bekhanze Bekhanze Maha Bekhanze Raja Samungati Swadhyata Bekhanze Maha Bekhanze Raja Samungati Sonamde Thamje Sivani Tomde Nyebe Janam Kega Naji Balam Juba Sibe Swalen Jawa Jawarasho Simjen Thamje Dedanding Ngendro Thamje Dado Dombrasho Chanju Samba Kanda Saju Deda Gunge Myolam Jawarasho Chunga Jembu Jayene Simjen Dongye Taj Geba Chewa Samye Su Chödyen Zech Shugyuroji Chua.
We have questions now. Some questions are from audience members, some are from people looking at the webcast. The first is a question about the second verse.
Actually, we have enough questions already, but it's okay. Ninda.
The first question is, for those of us not adept at placing ourselves below others, as is advised in the second verse, I will regard myself as lowest among all. For those of us who are not good at doing this, please advocate to develop the habit of exchanging ourselves with others or cherishing others more than ourselves. 도르나데 가서 따니 군에 멘타신 세대기 도도데 가레르스는데 달면서 간데신 거래 무슨 냐면 제나
가르다고서 예 members had come the members had 다 개심부 멤버들이 상담 면조 심진신다但是呢심진신对比呢심진신他也不知道 심진신 다음에 심진신에서 되게 좀 말해 제산 티균제된 감들이야 아니 베나 수수기 베나 세외 강사로 수수자와의 강사주의나 아니 되게 체도 삼선 수수 소를 당도들 같이 연구를 받아 공유인 이주도 되고 되 가르쳤잖아 신기 소의人일의 인당 체화를 지지 그래서 되죠 이 대비나 그래서 이 대비는 나 공디 인당 체를 지당 수수 소 인당 체화를 말했어 말이는 그래서 된 줄을 체인지선 딱 간다 디 오늘 자와 유메 거랑 투도 자와 예비나 그 균센스케 하면 미스 균센스야 하면 되나 간다를 레동시켜 하래 다 균센스야 거사 투선 안돼 시라시라 데 그런 자와데 문에는 닝타바는 마지베는데 균센스야 되면 집이 뱅거 말아다 디가리야 심진시야야 자와 쯤은 뭐지 저에서 한번 쇼차고 개비 임비나 아니 심진시 개시 뭐임바 심진시기 소 이나다 심진시기 롱주 이나다 심진시 이디 개시야 뭐지 고랑게 안그 지야를 좀 그래스 진짜 지면라도
Here, when it says regarding ourselves as lowest among all, and this is actually a matter of comparison. What are we comparing it to? Of course, we're all individually important. We have our individual importance, but here it's seeing others. There are infinite numbers of other sentient beings. So here, it's if we think about it, like if there's someone whom you love, if there's someone you really love strongly, then there'd be no problem. You'd have no hesitation in sacrificing your life or sacrificing yourself in order to save that other person's life. You wouldn't even need to think about it. So it's not that you don't have value in your own. It's that you consider the other as being more valuable, as being of greater importance. So this is if you have like real strong affection, real strong love for others. If you don't have that strong love, and someone has to explain to you the reasons why you need to sacrifice yourself and so forth, then there's no way you're going to be able to sacrifice yourself for others. And so, if you lack that love and affection for others, then explaining the reasons why you should is not going to be of benefit at all. So here it's a question of developing that love for others to such a degree so that it's so strong that that you feel like other people's lives, other people's possessions, and other people's happiness is more important than your own. So this is just relatively in comparison.
디 베나 디 리네사지 갑리아 가시 리볼루션 갑리아 아니 라마딘들이야 아니 심진들 세주르 심진들이 세주도잖아 그주기 디 당내 맞이베체 가수리 켈레 맞이베 인도사 아니 고란 소리야 지 가시 지 라과 근데 도 동샤바다 저기 이좀 고쳐 다 이내 그주딘 개봐야 가시 우마딘데 지스가도 스타 라과도 동들이시도사 고란 삼년 나한테 전송스다 디진 니 라과데 디 전다에 차송스 예면 나주다 고바시라면 다 라과도 동 심지시나 체도 아니 가르에다 심지신다 체도 라과도 동시 그 쪼어를 기야 근데 연구 있어 다이는 상면 딘데 체고로서 기지 말아 다이는 간다르다디 수수기 뉴발단 제하르마다 인지민지 디 제하고래 디디 전주스 비저바를 딘데 시야 말아 다디 조조다디 수수기 다 volunteer 제하르마도 디디 제하스게마도 딘데 시 간다르 초도 기바 담아도 냠바다데 계시미 기르성도 아주 상을 찍고 임바 디도 소이 찍고 임바 다디 계시슈
During the Cultural Revolution, there were lamas who were forced to kill other sentient beings, but they refused to do so. And because they refused to do it, then their hands were beaten with rocks. But they had no regrets about it. Later, I spoke with some. They said they had no regrets from it. It's like, finally, my hand has had a purpose. And so they had no regret about this. So it's this is a question if you have that capability to do this. You need to examine yourself. If you don't have such ability to do yourself, then there's no benefit in trying. So you need to examine yourself. It has to be something that you are doing voluntarily. At any rate, when we say regarding ourselves as the lowest, then at the very least we need to see ourselves as not being better than others. We need to recognize, it is important for us to recognize that we are all the same in experiencing feelings of pleasure and pain. The second question is one that two different people asked essentially the same question. If someone is raped, how could the victim possibly practice love and compassion or even forgiveness? How could they not want to see the rapist suffer?
Okay. Suffer. The countries forgive Chavras?
Re. Subakanishi komotokore.
Sabakana Gomoros? Yes, about Sabasad, Mimawaja, Miss Irish and the Mangoyan something to Sabagomasad. Got the zoo, the Sabagomsad, the Kashiji, the forgive Chesad. You shasta, Karjaba, Kuyan Shabas, never giant Shabas. That is sometimes young use. Did you woman? Samsung, Kashre, or Shida Niga young user, she was the Chawiniga young user. That range Santa Kadati or Handra. So the Kashresana, the Kaslauda. Tendina Roleane, Nyomo Balea, Savachat. Nyomo Balea, Savache, Mashi, Mima, which a Digi, Kosuria, the Tunation Bachumine, the Yujimbuji, Sosu Koben and Yarchi, Sosu Mizikanzania, the effect you had young boy. Then the Yunsen, that did it, she got rid, Tadenia Lentis, dance, that did it, Yomorse, Jazza did it, dance, and just Sosu in there, got relief charge. The Nomo relief cha. Dana is Shenina, kissing Mutuin, the some Bandevina, relieve you, Uncle Hashare. She knew some deacons at dinner. So the Nomoria, Chicas Nemoteani, Sabacon de Madobe, that's so the Tipsy is a damn Mabustation. I didn't take a house to one.
When we talk about forgiveness, or we talk about being patient, I think many people misunderstand this. So sometimes we think that when we say forgiving people, being patient with people, we think that means that we should just let them go, let them be free, let them off the hook. But it's not that, actually. Sometimes you have to deal with things both peacefully, and sometimes you have to deal harshly. The main thing, though, is that we need to be patient through the afflictions. It's the afflictions we need to be patient with. Sometime when someone's been victimized, when they've had a great suffering, they keep it inside themselves, and it is something they hold in their chest, and that it keeps bothering them and affecting them through their entire lifetime. And so in that case, it's the afflictions that we need to focus on. It's the afflictions. It's when we can deal with the afflictions, that is when we will be able to find some relief for ourselves. Otherwise, if we continue to hold it within ourselves, then it will be difficult to find any relief. And so the main thing is that we need to find an antidote. We need to apply the antidote for the afflictions. And yet this is something that is very difficult to do. Here's another one. When we are working with the kleshas, there is a tendency to get tight, and it gets more and more difficult to relax. How to approach this in a more relaxed and spacious way? Tight.
Okay, then.
이모는 이엠보 텐드라 가고베 진짜로 차도 되슬르 제단 고연
I think that is how to do. That's pneumonia, Toman it's a serious charge, you do something. Serious and Tanasi be Shugab and Beji, the Jim Tavina, and the Durjoy. How about the get the sort of the Carson? So serious child, and you won't go tell a serious child. Then I go lucky having a child. And Tana some of the who do. Be a serious chatter, sunny to Pamsona. The days you want about the Jida, the Jigashada, similar this Gashada, pumps or some sort of the DD toward the shooting. That is more play somewhere. Zemozana, but the boon of Zemozan, the Pamna Shasta, she asking me, what's asking me, so you are. Chesang, and did playing the Chanarani swinging about that's how much been Randa Yomo, the Kura, Yomo, the Kura to show us. Pogo in the two measures. Tanging you to wash that. Pogo in too short. That can new mondi is Pogo in that too short that you're about the Zemazat, Zeman do share of Chase. This having a day's casual. Kuyang Payan reject on this chatty, and it take Horana Yomoji Chana in Yata. New Mombasati, Lusim and New Momba, Lusim to her dams. In Dusane, German, which is deeds Kuyang Payan, Dana Singi plain, which is something on a chavin, this large amount of something to lose. Uncommon, someone uncommon.
When we are working with the afflictions or applying the antidotes for the afflictions, sometimes it's important not to be too serious about it. It's not to take them too seriously. Otherwise, sometimes if we try to be serious, we force things and we're really tight about it, then they're actually just going to get worse. And so if we take the afflictions too seriously, then the afflictions themselves will become even more serious. And then when that's happened, there's just nothing left that we'll be able to do. And so I think sometimes we need to try to be more playful in it. And sometimes what happens is we try to be too serious and see what happens, and then we get embarrassed. Oh, it's overcome me. I've been defeated. I've lost, and we have that feeling. And so it needs to be like play. It's like children who are playing. They aren't embarrassed about anything. They just go out and they play and they have fun, and they don't worry about how they look or who's to blame. So we need to see if we can do it like we're playing. It's like, okay, Aaron, come and get me. I'm going to fight you now. So you have to, like you're playing with the afflictions, and you need to be a little bit more relaxed, just more spacious about them. And if you're able to do that, then you can just sort of see how far can you do it. How much are you able to do with the afflictions? So in general, you just need to be a little bit more spacious and more relaxed, and have a little bit of a sense of play in your mind, and then it will be easier. Okay, the last one for me is, or from this stack, is why does a person get afflictions in the first place, and why is the frequency higher than good and helpful emotions?
Say again.
The Thangpa 가서 다 뉴몬 Thangpa kiebe jinsen 중공 잡아 가인다. 뉴몬네 가서 대 세월라서 보게 펜버게 emotion에 마음이 비진sen 가래래.
English zero.
Why does a person get afflicting emotions in the first place, and why is the frequency higher than good and helpful emotions?
다들 괜찮은데. 그러지 마. 자기 보면 유니야 내가다. 수심만 이제 이제 발로잖아.
아?
엄마잖아. 자기 보면 유니야 내가다. 수심만 이제 이제 발로잖아. 김세.
He's asking you to,
다다 유시다. 가르스웨디 녀몽 마방 지당의 녀몽 코라 지 마방에서는 다도다 콤지예비체 디 토르 가르스웨지 이도 온와다 이도 미외 유지 가르스웨 녀몽 비게외 유 다지 녀와리예비체 유다 이제 방고요로 다디사 라바도 총계 나로르베 다나시 디산디 가르스웨 다지 인터넷 다지사 유디스 녀시비예비체 다 수신만 이제 수신만 비일을 쳐야지 안 걸어야 kumdi chabe yin jusane na dinde tonda ko karshwe dugo di manga yebse na yabo de ya shirame on de jumsen ji dinde cause and conditions da dinde ton yon de mentos da dinde ji phalo shan de jumen.
It is as is said in the Treasury of Abhidharma by Vasubandhu, from habituation to the afflictions, from the object being present and close, and from not having abandoned the afflictions, and through inappropriate attention, the afflictions will arise. And so it is because we have strong habituation to the afflictions, and also because we have pleasant and unpleasant objects that are close to us, particularly living in cities. There are many different things that we see that are attractive or unattractive, and the internet and so forth, they bring the objects very close to us. And it also is because we have an inappropriate attention, a wrong way of viewing things. And so for that reason, we have many different the afflictions are more likely to arise. And so it is because all the causes and conditions that produce the afflictions are present that we have so many afflictions.
당부디 라이브 웹카스트 단계지 좋아서 다 좋아지나로 가르선 팅상 배나 가르디 WeChat 디나로라 아니 디 가사티 지도가데 가사 friend group 디나로 다나 신기 social network 망보치나로 수수기 배나지 가르레 최냐블레 제베기 냠용들의 망보 저도스 미망보지 수수 전화서 최기 전화 냠다 영화들의 망보 저도 디르르 디기 파르제 디 망보 가서 미망보 어다 두스 망보 TV나 파최이 파제 교르에서데 저들 지레션.
We have a question from the webcast, and the question is that these days we have social networking, WeChat groups, and discussion groups, and so forth. And in these, there are some people who talk about their experiences practicing the Dharma and the feelings that they have practicing Dharma. And so, is it okay to do this? Is it okay to do this or not? Is it something that maybe might help create imprints or encourage people to practice the Dharma?
다치당 쉐빈의 딜리앙아 네 섬수르드 가레스나 지당 지 수수기 가수에 다 튜몬도지 다 튜몬도 튜몬에 버리니 시작하면 지당기 가르쳐 더주르지미나 바진 저것도 다 이미네 데 튜몬에 버지 소소르베나 가수에 튜몬에 버지 냠다 영화로 정보다 다나 신기 밀럼로 정보다 다 디게 잠도 망고시 다시나 야부에서 말해서 정도스 가르사나 드레지 셰비나 아니 메주 랭가용으로 다들 랭가용도 사네 아니 소수기 디 페나지 카시 viewpoint 카시 correct 이미네 미신다기 섬주 담을 레용도 사 어다야 도바사지 아디 게 다다디게 연하면은 좀 도바사로다 안다는 신기야 안 correct 이미네 카시 야디 딘데 토네 지카슈에 오늘 저녁이 냠뇽 지엔다 맹아 예베 라마지리아 슈비나 아니 그 지베는 지거다 만지베는 만지베사지 고 다다르지 대하시 거를 마도베 다가스 지가르지 그룹 나나 가지고 먼저 봐주수 시에샤비나 안티기 소소기 야게 들어라 야게 좋아라 참참 지 뉴욕 저지다 삼삼 지 양 가수래 고통 엠버러 좋아 된적이 년가도 성도 스레인주산에 규모만 인비게 다 진양도 영어로 되게 시라마시네 야면서 띵에 손아르지
The way I think about this is that there are different types of experiences, those that we can share and those that are special, our own particular experiences. And so those that are shareable, those that are common experiences, it's fine to talk about those. But then there are own particular special experiences, like some sort of meditation experience or some vision or dream or various different things. And talking about those is not okay. And the reason for this is that when we tell people about that, then you might at first have a good understanding and a good viewpoint on it, but then later some person makes a response and says some other opinion, and then you start to get some doubt about it. Or you might not really be sure or have really have the correct understanding. And if you don't have the correct understanding of it, then if you go to a lama who has experience and who has the instructions, they can examine you to see if you are okay or not. But when you go to a group like this, then anyone's going to say whatever. They might say all sorts of different things, and it may hinder you or prevent you from really improving. Or it might help cause you to develop a really a wrong or bad understanding. So I think therefore my feeling is that it's best not to speak about your own particular special experiences or visions or so forth. Better not to say anything about them.
Okay, last two questions. 다디 당부디 가르 사람 okay. This one. 가산디 vegetarian 콜이야 좋아해버봐. 아니 마르방 가르쳐줘야 콜. 마르방 가르쳐줘야 인두산에 다 근데 가산시험네 다 근데 인두산 빼나 planets somewhere. 디줄라 디 여러바스 디 가르쳐 life 여러바스. 제가 디줄 컨데스 가르 life relief somewhere release 왜 가르 relief 왜 가르 release. 가르쳐 버렸다. 다디 그때나 animal 디줄이야 제야 planet 디줄 맞제나 디지 가지고 초를 와르지 초리 진짜로 그래서 다디 삼로지레셔다 다디 랜디 다데버지 겨레다 가르쳐서 좀 live 자디 scientists somewhere would see we share their lives 자디 energy 가르쳐변한 planets this life yourself 다 하지 아주 남배시에야 lives 자디 this 가가 유기를 성청도 지당 그 촌에 있는 거예요. lives 자디 벽에 더 된다르디 초신 내배 야 초와다 내배 누버예요. 치료와 다 진짜지 누버지 마도베 아주 참자 lives 자디 소를 유지도 소자디 남식이 돼 소는 체인 쳐다 남식 된가 이모서 줘봐 드린주사는 남식 이된도容易 드리지 고거로 드린주사 대양 믹스해지 소를 지시거라 드린 디균선되네 아니 디스 저거요 말해서 진짜 정도 드린 지단기 다 교화도 미교화스도잖아 교회기 심지어는 미교회기 다 사다 도도 지신나서 그 참으로야 니지 공부해야지 난 되게 참으로 아주지 가서 좋았음지 망부지기 냐월 초회기 다 힘을 차리게 빈지 수급 제거하되 계심으로지 제 도수야이
The question is regarding what His Holiness said yesterday about vegetarianism. The questioner says, well, plants are also alive. And so how is it, how can we do a life release for plants? If we only care about animals' lives and don't care about plants' lives, aren't we being biased in our care? And so His Holiness's answer is, Generally, when we talk about life, there is life as it is understood by science, and life like the life of a plant, and that is a little bit different from the understanding of life in Buddhism. So life in terms of the science is
sentient life.
Sentient life, we could say, maybe vitality, for lack of a better word, sentient life or vitality. So life, the scientific life, is the ability of something to maintain itself and to live. And so plants, of course, do have this ability, this scientific life. But there's a difference between this life and the vitality. And like the vitality or the Buddhist life, that, when you understand vitality, it's like the support of consciousness, as it is said. It's what supports the consciousness and keeps the warmth of the being. So, in order for it to be this vitality, then it has to be able to support consciousness. And it wouldn't be. We can't really say that plants have this ability to support the consciousness. And so, in this way, if we understand it, there's not a problem. Generally, when we talk about sentient beings, we talk about the moving and the unmoving. So the moving, of course, includes all the sentient beings. And then the unmoving includes the earth, the rocks, the plants, and all sorts of things. These are all things we need to care for, as they're all supports for our life. And so for that reason, we need to do everything we can to care for them and care for and nurture them.
Final questions. 취념내 약의 신비 체마르부터 가레스. 안에 가지기 치시 간드질 때네 소소 람양 타발에 슈예바디 치시 간드질 때는 또 토레스.
The question is, what are the signs of true practice? What is the level or the mark that we need to get to? What is the sign we need to have to show that we have truly entered the path of practice?
다들 남긴 this 가시에 다 냠내하고 청소스. 냠내하고 간데 청소라도서나 엔다지 가셔야. 딱고 가시 땅 앞에 야고 청소스 다 주가나 야고 청소 가르쳐서나 아니 칼라니 주가나 칼라니 야고도 대산 기본도 아니 뭐 가르쳐데 가르 숭아장아도 야부 친소 장가도 야부 친소 빼 야부 청소서 생이든지 가셔야 하래. 양 가시 냠내 쉬울 디사 빼면 냠내 하고 싶지도. 간데 차서 왔다 오늘 미람나로 진짜 땅도 섭지 통도 상계 해서 전주선배 수능权안 되지도 없어. 근데는 이제 완전히 다 이내야 지 가서 너무 충으로 친소 다나도 무글 체로 친소서 공부하지도 가야 안 돼. 내가 뒤균전되는 다 조조데 가르쳐서 최세하다 가르쳐서나 소주 가르쳐서나 정규 공부디 년시시바지 드는 아직 소주 가르쳐. 지자 뒤균전되는 아니 너무 지중도 친 다나도 무글다 전주기 셈다 되게 됐고 데 가르쳐지 샹아말레 치마 다왕아말레 치마 롱아말레 치마 데지기 상 야게 상비 야게로 지지시진 정도이나 아나 바지디 랑가디 양다바지를 최제를 쳐알라 다나지 최 가르쳐다지 뭐네 야게 치에 남바레스 근데 조금은 지당 무기 다나도 지시라시라면 다 지금 다음에지 성의도 되 총종도 되디 아버지라면 따르면 되지 인사해서
Often there are people who say, "Oh, my practice is going really well." And you ask them, "Well, how is it that your practice is going well?" And they say, "Well, I was in the retreat. Food was really good. Really nice place to stay. I was able to count all the numbers of mantras I was supposed to count. Practice is going really well." Or some people say, "Oh, my practice is going really well." And you ask them, Well, how's it going? Well, I said, having all of these dreams. I see the Buddha's face in my dreams. I hear the words of the bodhisattvas. Oh, this is a sign of my practice is really going well. But it's very rare to have someone say to you, oh, my practice is going really well. My afflictions are decreasing and getting fewer. My pure perception, my devotion is getting stronger. Actually, the meaning of the word dharma, the Tibetan word che, is to change. It's to fix something. So it's to fix or to heal our wild being, to decrease the afflictions, to increase our pure perception, increase our devotion, and increase our bodhicitta. And so that they get stronger every day, day by day they get stronger. Month by month they grow stronger. Year by year they go stronger. And if we have that happen, then that is a sign that we are on the true path. That is the manifestation of the Dharma, of our progressing through the Dharma. And so if our devotion and our pure perception decrease, if our minds get even stronger or get even more wild, then that is a sign of the Dharma not working, of the practice not being effective.
다들 인주산에 안타 다리디 가지고 아주 고생장군집 초기엔 가지고디 universal responsibility to trust 제 코나스에 저지 나체 안팅아바데 두스제 가지고 지시야를 든지 저지 나무데 코나스 저지 나게 아주 러지 조르게베 관 상월로야 두시셔야다 안다나신 데린딜이야 패백인 다 미망부지 망부지 다른 분의 배 다 간다지 망부지 뒤지 가시외 다나지데 패브데시다 가바충스 안에 두시에 수야인.
So now, today, this is the 5th time that I have given teachings here at the Foundation for Universal Responsibility. And I would like to offer my deepest thanks to Rajiv and all of the other people who have organized this event. Likewise, there are many people who've come from far away or people who've set aside the time to come here. And I'm very happy to see you all, and I'd like to thank you all very much.
아니 지 동창행이야 아니 지 남바상계에 취해대 야간을 봐 별이야 다려와래 다르제네 가수지 벽이 자심을 쉬지 다들 롱 동창리야 소디 다 가수지 취래 다가도 취래야 그 뒤주 망부시다 아니 다 간다르지 저와 망부시제 제제 다다봐도 preserve somewhere 냐사로 두세야래 대체네 안다다 양결 에너지 고랑기 최근 중에 야가를 주용하세 아주 이제 최고 토나마 sharing 차야 이제 총부터 아주 여기 가져다 이제 차야 오늘 아주 여기 판매디 수익이 가져다 오늘 저녁에 가져다 맞으다 판매에서 뭐다 ancestors 뭐로 다 되게 지금 판매다 다는 지금 아주 사매기 스지를 지당 아 다는 지금 아주 여기 가서다 가서다지 개발 상부를 지면지래야 또 숨지도 쇼에 안 되는 주산디 견전되네 아니 가서 and then so much 지다 라버도 아주 이제 야가르기 아주 미나 대표부터 삼로래야 미세다 도시에서 도시아인 아니 지당에 남아 남준 지가서 최세야다 왕꾸리야다 치자야다 그래서 지가서 토도 뉴뉴자지 더 뉴뉴치에부터 가서 아직 상견을 지나 라마 가시 까지 담보를 지나 상견치나 아시미시미 자로 되게 좀 하나 기시다 수수르니 다 가서 정말 컨트리뷰션 신기 냠도 영화스케 매비 인두스네 망부 시에되네 찌감부르지 마도베 시시라 시아메 드니르산 참상하랑 오르차양도 제사 기시야도 용으로 정해 다 이미는 참사 마셰가메로 지레도 우주자 마셰가메 싱메네 싱그에 노도르시 지시어라 제사 되는 논주를 드니 중요해베네 장으로 가수에 쇠바쇠야 도시 한 장으로 도시 샤인
So for the last, it was 1,000 years ago that the Dharma spread from India to Tibet. And in Tibet they treasured it, and for 1,000 years they preserved and propagated and researched. It's the place where the Dharma has been preserved. And so now, in this day, to come back to the place that is the origin of the Dharma, and to be able to share the Dharma with you is, I think, a sign of the real magnificence of all of our ancestors, all of the Dharma ancestors. It is a sign of our great fortune. And so for that reason, I'd especially like to thank all of the Indians who have come here today. So often I try to do as little Dharma teaching, give as few empowerments and instructions as I possibly can. And the reason is not because I'm trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to be secret about it. That's not what it is. Actually, it's really because I have very little experience of this, little understanding. And so anything that I teach is a little more than just dry words. And so I'm embarrassed to speak too much. But sometimes there's really no choice. And I do have to speak a little bit and teach a little bit. And so if in my teachings there have been any mistakes, then I would like to beg your pardon for those mistakes. And I would especially like to thank all of you for coming.
And also thank you for you. and also other translators. I can't see other translators, but it's okay. Somewhere there? Behind?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Holiness. On behalf of the Foundation for Universal Responsibility of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all of us who are present here, we thank you so much for 2 wonderful days of teachings and your blessing. Mr. Rajiv Mehrotra, my boss and my colleague, he couldn't join us this morning, so I have to do this job, which I'm not really good at. But anyway, Foundation also would like to thank everyone who's here, actually, our Indian friends here. Plus, we just went through the database and we found that there were 35 different countries, 400 plus people in this particular hall today. So thank you so much for coming. And we will keep in touch because now you are connected with us with email. So we'll inform you with future programs. And of course, we are looking forward to next year. We will request for another date from His Holiness. And I would like to thank also my colleagues, Mr. Nima. I hope you know, everyone knows because he was in touch through email. Mr. Bhatt and Mr. Devendra, he's outside right now. And we have 9 volunteers from Ladakhi Student Union in Delhi and Tibetan students from Tibetan Youth Hostel. So really thank you so much for their support and hard work. As requested while going out, we want to recycle the badge, so you can keep the card and you can give us back the plastic pouch and the strap. And we have a small souvenir from His Holiness for all of us. So while going out, please make a single line from both doors, and our staff will help you a small souvenir from His Holiness. Thank you so much.